Welcome back to the Becoming Her podcast. It is officially the first podcast in the new podcast studio, which I'm super hyped about. We've done a little bit of remodeling thanks to my amazing husband, which has been so patient with me to see out my vision that I had. And it's just a much more aesthetically pleasing space. So it allows me to be a bit more creative. And Anne's I talked her into getting a Mac, and she is hating me at the moment because if anybody's ever transitioned from a PC to a Mac, if you know, you know, the struggle is real. And I mean, I'm not the most technology savvy person either. Like my husband has to take care of all of that stuff for me. But Anne, I know it's been even on your end even more so because she's not the most technology savvy person. And so the
Oh no.
transition has been a bit challenging.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So I'm just gonna sit in one space, and in case I look like a robot, it's because I'm afraid of the screen moving. I can't turn it off.
So her auto detect is on for some reason and she can't get it to turn off in her settings. So if anybody has any feedback after you listen to this podcast and you could, just politely walk her
Correct.
through that, I'm sure that she would appreciate that. I'm like, we're just going to record. So she looks like she's a mummy. You're watching this on the actual video. She looks like she's just kind of like frozen solid. She's afraid to move. That's all that it is.
Yep.
No worries. But we also have our first official Q&A podcast, which I'm pretty hyped about. So I ran a anonymous Q&A on my stories a few weeks back, and we had quite a few questions that came in, a lot of questions in and around the same theme. So I have compiled a list of questions that we had, at least the most popular questions. We're not going to have a chance to go through all of them because I did get quite a bit of response, but I took the ones that were repeated within the same theme and we're going to just walk through and answer those questions. So yeah, it's going to be good. So I will read off question and then, and I'll let you kind of dive in and then we'll just bounce back and forth that way. Yeah.
Let's go.
Perfect. All right. So, question number one. My husband thinks I'm exaggerating when I say menopause has wrecked me. He'll say either just eat healthier or you're overthinking. How do I actually explain what's really happening?
Oh. So, okay. So this is from the Dismissive Husband Chronicles. This one is really challenging. And I would invite you that if you're in a place where you're trying to convince your husband that what you're experiencing is really what you're experiencing, that isn't the battle that you need to have. The bigger battle that you need to have with your husband is not dismissing your feelings and your own experience. And a lot of times when I do couples work, even when I'm in session with couples and I hear a man or a woman saying that can't possibly be, a lot of times I will point blank ask them as a therapist, how do you know? How do you know that this isn't my experience? How do you know that this isn't what menopause is like? There isn't a lot that we can communicate when someone doesn't want to dismiss, but the reason why they dismiss is often because they feel a tremendous amount of anxiety if it was really this impactful for you. So, in other words, if you were to convince your husband that menopause is as bad as it would appear, then he would feel a lot of pain and then want to fix that. And since there's nothing he can do, he would feel really awful about it. And so, really, dismissiveness is just trying to avoid his own emotional setbacks and his own challenges that he might face and feeling helpless in being able to support you. So I would actually venture off of trying to convince and instead just share and say, if you're not going to listen to me about this, I'm going to go find a provider who at least can listen to me. But this is going to be something that we argue about simply because I don't like being dismissed.
Yeah, we actually did a whole podcast talking about just menopause and the impacts it has on a relationship. So I'd highly encourage you to go back and listen to that podcast. It was a few months back, but it was a really impactful podcast. I think we actually had some of our regular listeners send it to their husband, and somebody had made the comment of, I mean, there was quite a few comments on there, but this was really helpful. It's allowed me to like communicate with my wife a little bit easier. So I'd really encourage you to go listen to that. If you feel the need, maybe even send it his way. It could offer some insight as to what's really going on. And on your end, I'm going to encourage you with menopause comes a lot of emotions, obviously. Hormones are declining. You are, for a lot of women, it is like one of those, I feel like a stranger in my own body. I don't even quite understand how to navigate this. So just to make sure that you're getting the support on your end to be able to do so, particularly when it comes to hormone replacement therapy, because that is your ticket to feeling like yourself again. Menopause is hormone deficiency, and so as these hormones start to decline, replacing them with a bioidentical version, and I know Anne, you can speak to this, is just the impact it has had on not just how you feel, but your emotions, your sleep, just your overall mental health it is a game changer. So please, 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 if you have not yet explored that option, make sure that you are working with a provider who truly understands how to tackle this. I'm very, very vocal about this, but that's typically not your traditional PCP or OBGYN. This is going to come from a actual hormone expert, somebody who understands how to optimize hormones, who has a belief system. Unfortunately, this is not all providers of treating you off of symptoms, not just labs. If you are perimenopause, those labs will come back normal. And then for a lot of providers, you walk out of the office feeling defeated just because, well, it's like that, oh, this just is what it is, and there's no help available. And I promise you that's not the case. So being able to replace your hormones is going to make a night and day difference with how you feel, your emotions, being able to sleep again. And then obviously making sure that the lifestyle piece is in conjunction with that, because there's no amount of hormones that if the lifestyle piece isn't there, your body's just not even going to respond to the hormones as well. So making sure that you're fueling your body correctly, you're lifting heavy shit, you're prioritizing rest and recovery, you're getting enough whole foods, you're getting enough fiber. That is in conjunction with hormone replacement therapy going to get you to a place where you feel like yourself again. Anything to add
Yeah.
to that, Anne?
Well, yeah, I wanted to talk really briefly about the hormone piece. If you're having struggles, please don't hesitate to reach out. And if your provider is telling you everything's normal and you still feel awful, please, 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 please go and find someone that's willing to listen to you and take you seriously, because it is make or break, night and day difference in how you feel. And for me, I could say that like I will they will be prying my hormones out of my cold dead hands. When I'm like 93, and like I'm committed to them, but I feel like me again. And that absolutely was not my experience in my early 40s, and certainly not what I was told from my PCP, who was a wonderful person, lovely lady, very, very smart, trusted her with every ounce of my being. She just had a very different perspective for treating perimenopause and menopause than what I needed and what I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And so you got to find it. I mean, guys, we're not in the business as women of making everybody happy. We are in the business of trying to figure things out for ourselves.
And like I'm so glad that you pointed that out. Again, I'm sure that they're a great provider. They just don't know what they don't know. There's very, very little training when it comes to traditional PCPs, even OBGYNs, when it comes to how to help and support females going through menopause. Again, the training is just very, very, very minimal. So being able to work with an expert who understands this on a deeper level. And I always say it's like, if you needed open heart surgery, you're not going to go to your primary care physician expecting that. You're going to go to a cardiologist because that's what they specialize in. Your hormone protocol and therapy and replacement should honestly be no different here. And so,
Mhm.
really, just making sure that you're getting the right level of support and you're going to the right people to be able to help support you with that. So, all right, question number two. I work 60 hours a week. I travel for my job. I'm taking care of my aging parents. And the only thing that I feel like suffers is me. How do I stay consistent without feeling like I have to choose between my health and my everyday life?
Oh, okay.
I know
I
you're going
feel
to have a
like
lot for this one.
I, I feel like I live this. Nicole, I think you might live this sometimes too. Um, I think as women, we tend to do this without hesitation. We are so accustomed to giving our lives in sacrifice for everyone else. We're nurturing, we're taking care of, we are trying to be superwomen. We're trying to work like we don't have children and have children like we don't work, and we're burning the candle at both ends. Let's be frank. And I lived many, many years of my life like this, and didn't sleep well, didn't eat super well, didn't meal prep for myself. I was eating chicken nuggets and mac and cheese on the go, and in my 30s that worked okay for me. In my 40s that was really questionable, and I will not do it now in my 50s. And what I would say is, and this is going to be very, very hard for you, some of you to hear. So I'm gonna hold your hand as I say this. You aren't doing anybody any good if you're not taking care of yourself. You might look like on the outside you can do all of the things, but you're short-tempered, you're exhausted, and your growing levels of bitterness are palpable to the people around you. And when you go home and you're snapping at your kids because you just can't take any more, you can't take any more noise, you can't take the teenage angstiness, it is not because you suck as a parent. It's not because you're an awful wife. It is not because you are an awful human being. It is because, very simply, you have not prioritized or taken responsibility for yourself. That is where the real money is, and that is how we make movement in our mental health, and that is how we become better partners, better parents. And running from point A to point B is not doing it. So let's try something new. Let's try first by taking responsibility for yourself. Let's try with waking yourself up slightly early in the morning, which might mean that you have to go to bed slightly earlier. Might mean that we're going to have to say no to people in our life about some of the things that they want to do with us. And while that might be really challenging for us and really heartbreaking to do that, and we're all worried about how everybody feels and not hurting people's feelings and our kids not feeling left out or not missing out on their childhood, I will promise you and guarantee you that your children will deeply appreciate a very calm, regulated version of you over the version of you that's racing from point A to point B, doing whatever everybody wants. The only way that I live by that, and I live by this, I wake up really early in the morning. I go to the gym first thing. And the reason I go to the gym first thing is if I wait, one, I'm going to be too tired. Two, I'm going to find excuses. And three, some crisis or emergency is going to happen for someone, guaranteed. Somebody's going to get sick. Someone's going to have a last minute thing they forgot to tell me. It's going to be a project thing. So I flip flop my day and I prioritize getting up in the morning. And then when I come home at night and how I live my week, and the very first thing I do in the weekend is I make sure that I have my tasks covered, the things that I need to get settled for the week. And that is often things like meal planning and meal prepping. Looking, and I do it completely backwards. I make sure that I go on a bike ride first. Like my kids don't see me on Saturday morning. I let my husband know where I'm going to go, and I go out and I ride my bike. Matter of fact, I told my coach, you cannot schedule anything for me on Saturdays. I will not be doing it.
I
I
have to
don't
say
care
no
what it will
go.
do. she she's probably sick and tired of me being feisty with her about my Saturdays and my rides. But the reason why we do that is legitimately for our mental health, and that is going to make you much more regulated as a human being. You will feel so much prouder of yourself, not simply because your needs are getting met, but because you're not blowing up at everybody and you're able to think more clearly. It
Hmm.
is make or break. And there is no nice way of me telling you this. You have to do this. This is what responsibility looks like. And when you're not doing that, when you're saying, I can't because everybody else dictates my schedule, you are living in a state of chronic codependency. And
Mm.
that is where we're saying, I can't be okay if you can't be okay. And that is putting way too much pressure on the people in your life.
Yeah, I always say, and this is a really hard lesson for me to learn, but boundaries are meant to keep people in, not necessarily push them out. And
Mm,
what I see happen so often is that women say that they hold boundaries and they might have boundaries within partners and friends and relationships, but they don't have boundaries for themselves. And this was
hmm
a really, really hard thing for me to grasp. And as females, you guys hear me talk about this all of the time, but how many thousands of hats do we wear, it feels like sometimes? And we're juggling 18 different balls in the air at once. We're mom, wife, maid, chauffeur, therapist, right? In Anne's case, literally therapist. And so we have all of these different balls that are up in the air, and we're just trying to keep our head above water. And so if you're trying to show up for everybody else before you've been able to show up for yourself, do you think you're coming into any, or you're, in those capacities at 100%? Absolutely
Mm-mm.
not. Absolutely not. So the way that you're showing up in all of those roles is being diminished simply by the fact that you're not able to take care of yourself first and foremost. And I know it's cliche. I know it's cheesy, but you cannot pour from an empty cup. You just can't.
Yes.
So this is going to require you getting like sitting down and getting really open and honest with yourself, finding some sort of schedule and routine. I live by my calendar, you guys. I love my calendar, and being able to time block is something that saves me. And I quite literally time block my time in the gym. I time block my filming time. I time block certain things because it is the only way that I can make sure that I check everything off of my list. But as Anne said, my training and those things that happen for me first thing in the day. And that may not be realistic for you. It may not be I can get to these things first thing in the day, but it still needs to be in your calendar and it needs to be booked out just like you would a dentist appointment for your daughter, right? You wouldn't miss that dentist appointment for your daughter. And if something came up at work, you would you'd make it work because again, that dentist appointment for your daughter is important. It's no different with your training, your meal prepping, your even just recovery, alone time. I will time block out like blocks throughout my day, 20, 30 minutes that just say breathe, relax, shut down, close, like whatever it looks like for me, just to be able to almost recalibrate. But
Mhm.
again, this has come with a lot of trial and error of what works well for me within my scheduling. So I would really, really encourage you to sit down. And if you have not looked at your day and planning it out from, A to Z and figuring out what are those time blocks and when it makes sense for you. And then also making sure that you don't what I see happens so often is women overcommit, especially when it comes to their health and fitness journey, because we think more is better and we're going to get to our end goal faster. And so you go from not tracking your nutrition, not working out, not having a step goal, not having any sort of parameters in place into, okay, my goal is to lose 20 pounds. So I'm going to get the gym 6 days a week. I'm going to eat 1,300 calories. I'm going to, 150 grams of protein. And you try to take everything on. And then that becomes that perfectionist mentality, right? I always say, when life be lifing, as it always does. And then the thing that goes when life is lifing is the thing that's met with the most resistance. And so that's when your steps slowly go out the window because it's overwhelming when you try to go from averaging, let's say, it's very common, 3,000, 4,000 steps a day when we have women who are working and just, we have very sedentary jobs these days. And then I'm going to go from 3,000 steps to 10,000 steps overnight as if that is not going to impact you. And so the thing that goes is the thing that, again, met with the most resistance. So that's your steps. That's your training when you go from working out 0 days to 6 days a week because more is in our head, more is better, but more isn't better. Better is better. So what is realistic for you is going to be the question I get asked. And well, how many days a week should I work out? And my first question is, how many days can you commit to this? Not just when it's new or it's fun or it's exciting or it's convenient. When life is chaotic and things get thrown your way and curveballs, what is that time block that you can put in your calendar and yes, schedule it? And I know for a fact, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I can make this happen. Cool, fire. We're writing a 3 day training split. Why in the world would I write you a 5 day training split if realistically you can only hit 3 days a week that you know for a fact that you can commit to? So that's the first question, is really getting honest with yourself here. And it might be you stepping out of your ego a little bit of, this is what the day to day looks like for me. This is what's realistic. And then time blocking around what that is. And then having some sort of commitment to that. I heard somebody say the other day, and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so much power to this. But you hear people say often, the phrase "give yourself grace," and what she was saying is, I feel like grace is seen by the wayside if we don't have grit that goes with that grace, because the grace is the kindness, the grit is the commitment. And so if you are somebody who is trying to, start some new schedule or routine that works towards your health and fitness goals, and you have the mantra of, okay, this is hard, give yourself grace, yes, but where's the commitment that follows through? So this is going to come with that piece of, I made a promise to myself. I'm going to keep these promises I made to myself. If you take the route of which we just talked about right now, I looked at my calendar, I looked at my schedule, I know for a fact this is what I can commit to, and then you keep those commitments. I see you shaking your head, Anne. I'd love for you to chime in.
Yeah, there are a couple points that I really wanted to point out, that as women, we tend to worry about everybody else feeling gypped or left out or, hurt by us taking care of ourselves or doing the right thing. And one of the things that I want to point out is that our children and the world around us doesn't listen to what we say, they listen to what we do. And so, what you model at home in terms of self-care is what your children, particularly your daughters, are going to pick up. For those of us that are women, and for those men that might be listening to this, your sons are going to follow what you do, not what you tell them to do, but what you actually are doing as an aspect of self-care, because otherwise they're getting a message from you directly that self-care is not important. So while we're pouring into our children thinking that they feel loved and nurtured and taken care of, what we're doing is we're encouraging sacrifice to a point of injury. And
Mm,
that is something that I take seriously as a parent. And that's something that I take seriously as a mental health provider. And that's one of the reasons why I really get feisty about it. The other thing that I want to invite you to do is that pick three really small things. three things that are so ridiculously tiny that you're like, there is no reason why I couldn't do this. And then do those things, move in a direction towards those three really small things. When I first started meal planning, it literally looked like the only three days the work week that I was worried about were Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Those were the only 3 days that I meal planned for. That was it. That's all I did. And then it was leftovers or just like Russian roulette the rest of the week. And now I plan for just about every single day because I like it. It works so much better. I'm not worried about it. My kids appreciate it. Um, but do what fits for you and find it in really tiny steps. They do not have to be mega steps. Matter of fact, research says the tiny steps over long term are going to get you much farther because they're compound steps. So we can keep growing them, we can keep increasing them, but we got to start small and we got to start somewhere.
Yep, 1,000%. I love that you brought that up. It's again, it seems in the heat of the moment when it's new and it's fun and it's exciting, but when it comes to the reality of actually cultivating habits, this is going to come from, again, those small things that we compound. And again, they just continue to, we stack undeniable evidence that we are who we say we are. And those efforts continue to compound. And then when we realize that typically what it tends to be too is what's that saying, fear is a mile wide and an inch deep. And when we
Mhm.
step into it, it's not as overcomplicated or maybe as hard as we wanted to make it out to be. I love that you brought up meal prepping, right? In the very beginning, it felt so overwhelming, but now I do it because it saves me kind of thing. And we tend to really overcomplicate and make things a little bit more challenging and difficult than what they are. So
Yes.
again, being able to recognize that and see that and then allow those things to compound and stack that evidence and then continue to build upon that. All right. I love this question, Anne. I know that this is going to align or it's going to resonate with you. And this is one of my very favorite things to talk about. But do I really have to lift heavy weights at 50? I've always been a cardio girl and I'm terrified I'm going to get bulky or injure myself. So, and I know we've talked about your journey. I mean, often. So you have so much to say about this, but I'm so excited as well. But I'm going to let you rip first.
Okay, first up, person who asked the question. Yes, you are my people. I lived and breathed cardio from the age of 7. I was a competitive swimmer all the way to early 40s, where I took up cycling. I did running for a hot second in my miserable years that I hated myself. I love you, runners. I wasn't a runner. I tried really hard. Um, and cardio was my jam. I literally, even for me to give up I still rode bike a couple times a week, and for me to give that up, like my coach would have to give me some really stellar evidence just to give up my cardio. However, what I will say is that when I went to the gym, and I did so begrudgingly, and I mean, I was bitter and grumpy and salty at being at the gym, and I have been at the gym at that hour, mind you, to do cycling, indoor cycling. Okay, so it wasn't the time; it was the fact I was lifting heavy weights, and I didn't know what I was doing, and I didn't want to do it. And I will say that I did it for 6 months and I was like, okay, whatever. I'm getting slightly stronger. That's kind of neat. But like I wasn't noticing definition. And I would say about the point I really started to notice some amazing definition was about the year mark. And then you take it another 6 months past that. Holy smokes. I had people stopping me, talking about how I looked and how much discipline I looked like I had. All right.
Mhm.
And for those of me that know me and that have heard me talk before, I love my chocolate and tortilla chips. So the discipline isn't about denying myself. So it's all about 30, 45, sometimes an hour in the gym, 3, sometimes 4 times a week. That is it. And I know that that sounds a lot, but I didn't start there. I started really small because, again, I was a bitter Nancy showing up at the gym at that hour doing weights. And I can tell you to this day, I still go and I can't do squats like other women that are my age that are lifting like really, really heavy stuff. One day I hope to get there, but I can do a lot more than I used to, and I am so much stronger and look so much stronger than what I did. But yeah, you do. You got to do it if you want different results. Like there isn't. I was doing, and I've talked about this before. I was doing 100 miles on my bike every week, and I was getting fluffier and fluffier, and I didn't understand it, and I wasn't eating a lot. So it was really frustrating. And I tell you what, when I started lifting weights, flip-flopped. I eat more than I do. I eat more now than I went when I was riding 100 miles a week.
Mhm.
I work out less time, well, at least less time on the road, that's for sure. And I look far more cut than what I ever did. And it is mind blowing. Cannot state this enough. Mind blowing. I now enjoy going to the gym. It's not miserable. I'm not as bitter. But I had to really hunker down for, I'd say, about 6 months to even get to a place that I was even remotely potentially looking forward to going to the gym.
You brought up so many great points here. And she had asked, is it really necessary? Necessary if your goal is not just to look your best, but to feel your best. Yes, it is 1,000% necessary. It is a non negotiable. Muscle is the key to everything that is good in life for you. Everything. And not even just, and I'm going to put this on a t shirt, the toned, banging body that you feel damn good and naked. We're talking longevity. We're talking health. We're talking anti aging. We're talking combating falls, breaks, tears, osteoporosis. We're talking being able to make menopause your bitch. Muscle is the key to all of those things. And so when it comes to, again, I feel like feeling your best gets overshadowed by I just want to look my best. But when menopause hits, and I'm sure that you're feeling this as hormones start to decline and your body becomes, you don't recognize it, you don't understand what is going on, up, down, left, sideways, your emotions are all over the place. Muscle is going to help you combat all of those things. And so, as estrogen starts to decline and we become more insulin resistant, and there are so many things going on internally inside your body with hormones declining, not to mention the fact that as we age, we start to lose muscle mass. And so,
Mhm.
being able to, at bare minimum, and I talk about this, sustain and maintain the muscle that you do have, but being able to add more of it to your frame is the only way you're going to combat all of these things. If you are a female who is not strength training, your future is going to look like, and I mean this with all the love in my heart, and like Ann said, there's no easy way for me to say this, but your future will look like nursing homes. Your future will look like needing help to get off the toilet. If you are not lifting weights heavier than your purse, your future is going to look like a lot of dependency on everybody else to help you with bare, basic shit. It will not be fun. Your body is going to shrink. Your lifestyle is just going to get smaller, and you are going to be riding the struggle bus hard. And so, this isn't even just about, and I know we start this journey for the physical piece of it. And don't get me wrong, the physical piece of it, I'm all about body comp. I'm all about the toned look. I'm all about, it's my love language. But it is so much more than just my body looks good. As you age, it's a non negotiable. It's just a non negotiable. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
And I don't know if you mentioned this in that list of things that this helps with, but our muscle mass drives metabolism.
Mhm.
So for those of you that really enjoy tortilla chips and chocolate, like me, and ice cream and all the good foods, it's not in I thought this when I was doing a lot of cardio, thinking like you're burning a lot of calories. Yes, you are. You're burning a lot of calories while you're doing the exercise, but you're not burning a lot of calories at rest. And that is the game changer for metabolism, burning extra calories at rest, doing absolutely nothing simply because you have extra muscle mass. Like, what a brilliant sales pitch for muscle.
Yep. It's calorically expensive. So it takes calories to be able to sustain and maintain your muscle mass. And it is a driver of metabolic capacity. And until you have a metabolism that's working for you instead of against you, this is exactly why you lose the weight to gain it back, to lose it to gain it back. So if the goal is to keep the weight off, then muscle is the way. It's your insurance policy. There's no better deposit that you can make in your metabolic bank account than adding muscle to your frame. And I love that Anne brought up the fact it's like, I was bitter, I was resentful. I can lift a lot heavier weight now because I get asked this question often because you guys hear me talk about this. I'm always talking about lifting heavy shit, right? Multiple times a week. And then we put that heavy shit back down. And I get asked often, it's like, well, how heavy? And that's relative. Weight is relative to you. What's heavy for Anne is going to look very different than what's heavy for me. The goal here is taking your muscle to failure and making sure that you're tracking your training and that you are applying progressive overload. Again, this is it's a very unique individual thing. What works for me and the amount of weight I lift isn't going to look the same than what you would be lifting. But what I can tell you is that females tend to really underestimate just how strong they are. And I'm not telling you just to go lift a ton of weight to lift a ton of weight without your form being in check. But what I am telling you is that you are stronger than what you think. And your weights do need to be heavier
Mhm.
than your purse. And so start small. And if that is just body weight and resistance there, cool, fire, love that, but build and allow yourself to give yourself credit for being as strong as you are and give yourself credit for wanting to take up space and give yourself credit for being there and owning this part of you because this is Again, I keep saying non-negotiable. I'm trying to find a better, more powerful way of phrasing this, but I just don't have one. It is as you age, it is then it is what's going to drive your lifestyle. And whether you age with grace and being able to enjoy your years versus aging not so gracefully and menopause sucking your soul and just living a life that just doesn't feel good. Fair statement. Hands like over here shaking her head.
Yeah, yeah. No, nobody can see me shaking my head, and if I shake it too violently, my video my video will pan to me. But yes, absolutely, that
All
is
right.
it.
Love that. So this is kind of piggybacking off the muscle piece of this, because the nutrition piece of this with the muscle piece of this is huge. But I keep hearing I need way more protein, but every time I try to hit those numbers, I feel stuffed or bored out of my mind with chicken and eggs. Is it worth really forcing it?
I just had a conversation this morning with a friend of mine about this very exact same topic. Yes, it is worth it. And it is worth it for a lot of different reasons. One, especially for those of us that are in a place where we have insulin resistance, or if our A1C is jacked up, that's where mine was. We got to flip-flop some stuff around, right? But we do need protein to build muscle, and that's going to be the most effective thing. We need carbohydrates to support cardio. So if we're doing less cardio, we need slightly less carbohydrates. Also, carbohydrates increase blood glucose, right? So this is a really useful thing. And I am with you. I am one of those people that I felt like I was eating meat all day long and I was getting really bored by it because I'm not a meat eater. I like, yeah, give me my carbs all day long. And it really worked for me the first 35 years of my life. I will say that I had to find a lot of other different sources of protein, and
Mhm.
you get really creative with this. I mean, to 100 calories of broccoli, which is like 2 cups, 2 to 3 cups of broccoli has 11 grams of protein. Greek yogurt has protein in it. There are a lot of alternatives. We can add stuff into carbohydrates that we like. We can add extra things into muffins that we bake. We can get creative with bringing protein and fuel sources, protein sources in particular, into food. So it doesn't have to be boring. And if it is boring, please, please, please don't end your journey simply because you're bored with food. There's a lot of really creative chefs out there that talk about high protein meals that taste just as amazing as typical meals that you would have. And if it kind of makes sense in my mind. So my daughter had a stomach issue for a while, and we had to do the FODMAP diet, and I had to do a whole bunch of extra meal prepping for her and change up the things that I brought into the home so that she could eat food appropriately. I went out of my way to do this. And if I can do this for my daughter, then I can figure out how to do it for myself. Now, I was much more resistant. I'm sure that many of you are resistant to doing this to yourself, but what we eat, we wind up consuming. So what we consume, we wind up craving. And we can actually train our taste buds on things that have more protein in them, and we feel satisfied with them. And initially, yes, you will feel very full with protein. That's kind of the perk of it, because you are extra full. We're not going to eat a lot of extra stuff. But eventually, you get to a place that your body metabolizes it pretty normally because it habituates to it. And then it just uses it really effectively. And Nicole, I am 100% positive that you have a ton more to say about this topic than even I do. But I can just say from even layman's place, doing this myself, that there are a number of different tweaks that you can make that you will not even notice the difference and still enjoy a lot of the foods that you enjoyed.
You nailed it. You nailed it. And I do have more to say to this because I see often that it's not so much that you struggle to hit your protein as much as it's you're not making the right choices when it comes to putting your meals together. And there are really simple, easy swaps that we can make that make hitting this goal a lot less daunting. And what I see happen is, like Anne said, most of the time you hear I need to consume more protein. And that typically comes with the thought process of I need to eat more meat. Increasing your animal protein sources is absolutely a way to increase your protein intake. But what I see happen is naturally we gravitate towards meats that are, don't get me wrong, they're delicious, right? We gravitate towards fattier meats like bacons and sausage. And, if we're going to eat a steak, it's a ribeye or a New York strip because, again, it's delicious. We gravitate towards, if it is ground beef, it tends to be like 80-20 75-25 kind of thing because it's cheaper in the store. And we just don't know what we don't know either. And so if you're not somebody who's ever really tracked your intake or looked at your breakout of macros before, you gravitate towards these things again because they're delicious. They might be a little bit cheaper in the stores. And this is what you think you need to do to increase your protein intake. And this becomes really challenging to hit the amount of protein that you need to hit. And I get this question often. It's like, how in God's green earth, Nicole, do you expect me to hit my protein goal staying within my calorie deficit? I can't. If I hit my protein, I blow my calories out of the water. If I don't hit my protein, I'm way under. I'm struggling with this balance. And this is, again, you just don't know what you don't know. And it's a lack of understanding how to put the proper foods together to be able to do this. And so once you understand this piece of it, and I'm going to give you guys some tips and tricks, and I have a ton of resources in my private Facebook community. If you want access to that community, shoot me a message. I'll get you into that community that's going to allow you to do this. But I have a few tips and tricks here that is going to make hitting your protein goal effortless. And this is something, you guys, like Anne said, it's another, like strength training. It's another non-negotiable when it comes to being able to, at bare minimum, be able to sustain and maintain your muscle mass. A high protein diet is going to, like Anne said, keep your belly happy and satiated, which means you're not snacking as much. You don't have the cravings for those snackier foods. Fun fact, protein has the highest thermic effect of food, up to like 20%. So meaning your body burns calories just digesting protein. It takes your body more work to digest protein. So up to 20%. And that doesn't seem like a lot, but if you are eating 100 calories worth of protein, your body is digesting up to 20 calories or it's burning up to 20 calories just digesting that protein, which again, a bigger bang for your buck there. And that adds up over time. If 700 calories of your day is coming for protein, and most average women, it is going to be in and around that. And so being able to, first and foremost, pre-track and pre-log your day. This is not the sexy side of fat loss. This isn't the glamorous side of it. This is, I know, the side that feels overwhelming and daunting when you're starting out and you're new to this journey. But if you pre-track and pre-log your day, you will never not hit your protein goal. If you follow what you've set, like, right? If you actually hit the plan that you've logged into MyFitnessPal. Now, this is going to take more time in the very beginning. It's going to feel overwhelming. It's going to be one of those, like, I don't want to do kind of things. And this is where it's like, give yourself grace for the overwhelm that tracking is, but we also need the grit that comes with that grace and the follow through. Because you can track all day long, but if you just throw it out the window because it's too hard, it's challenging, I can't get my macro split right, then you're never going to reap the rewards from that. So if you set your day up by pre-tracking and pre-logging, and you take, I don't know, 20 minutes the morning of, 20 minutes the night before to set yourself up for success. And even if at the very beginning, all you're tracking is your protein, cool, start there and you're hitting that protein goal. Second, understanding what foods are going to give you a bigger bang for your protein buck. And what I mean by this is, what are you going to get the most protein out per calories for the calories amount. So this is something I always give a really easy hack to do. This is, if you look at the back of like a nutrition label and it shows, let's say, 20 grams of protein. And if you add a zero, so basically multiplying by 10%, but if you add a zero to that protein amount, so you take 20 and you add a zero, that's 200. If that protein amount is higher than the calorie amount, so let's say it's Greek yogurt and the calories in that are 140 calories. You add a zero to that 20, it's 20 grams a serving. That 200 is higher than that 140. Fire protein source. You're getting the biggest bang for your buck here. So you're going to want to look for equal, if not more than what that calorie amount is. Because there are so many things that are marketed these days to high protein, and they're not, you guys. I'm sorry, peanut butter is not delicious. Delicious. Not that it's bad, not that you shouldn't eat it, but it's not a protein source. Cheese, delicious. Not that it's bad, not a protein source. And so if you're struggling to hit your protein, staying within your calories, and you're trying to eat things like peanut butter and cheese, and, like I said, you're going to the store and you're getting ground beef, and that ground beef is 75-25 or, 80-20, at that point, you're getting more calories from fat than you are from protein. So I'm going to encourage you to understand how to read a label, but also to opt for leaner protein options. So this is going to be leaner cuts of meat, and this is going to be non-fat options when it comes to your dairy sources. And this is just going to give you a bigger bang for your protein buck, is all that this is. So you're getting more protein per serving of calories than you are fats. That's what this is. And typically, if we can control our fats, we can control our calories. And again, it's not that fats are bad, and it's not that you shouldn't have fats. You should have a diet that is healthy in fats. Specifically for a female going through menopause, fats are hormonal support. But if you're struggling to hit your protein goal, this simple swap is going to make a night and day difference. So if you think leaner cuts of protein For me, typically tend to eat the same protein sources because they work really well for us and we just prepare them in different ways. But for my household, it's chicken breasts and even chicken thighs. We do a lot of extra lean ground beef, extra lean ground turkey. When I say extra lean, 93.7, 96.4. We do a lot of, I feel like this is a protein hack. It is so cost friendly and it's so delicious if we prepare it correctly. But pork tenderloin, I understand not a lot of people are pork fans, but you can go to Costco and get them in the 2 pack. And then there's 2 tenderloins in each pack. So you're basically getting four tenderloins for like $18. It's so stupid cheap. And if you smoke those bad boys, you can put them in the air fryer and they turn out delicious. But if you do them correctly, it is super low calorie, super high protein, quite literally a hack there. And you can meal prep those. I mean, they cook in like an hour on the smoker. You can put all four of those on there. And then, I don't know how big your family is, but you could have it for a whole week and put it in a sandwich and make it within different ways and prepare it differently. So we do a lot of pork tenderloin. We do a lot of shrimp and whitefish because it's basically pure protein. Tuna, if you're a seafood fan, again, not everybody is a seafood fan. We do a lot of Greek yogurt, non-fat Greek yogurt in this household. A serving of Greek yogurt, you guys, is like 20 grams of protein. Add in a scoop of protein powder, you can get like 40 grams of protein in one bowl. One delicious bowl. If you guys follow me, you know how much I love my yogurt bowls. It's like my whole day gets planned around my yogurt bowl every single night. It's my favorite part of my day. I love nothing more than putting my hair on top of my head, sitting down with my husband, and literally it's one of the way that we connect and just talking. And it's like one of my favorite things about my day. So if you understand the types of food, then it just makes hitting that goal effortless. And so you just want to start looking for the right options. And it's not that the other options are bad, but when it comes to hitting and meeting those protein goals, it's simple swaps here that can make a massive, massive difference. And then it allows you to stay within your calories. And then I prefer to get my fats from other sources. I do a lot of butter, avocado, nut butters from times. Like I just get my avocado, I said avocado, I get it from different sources. So it's not that I don't eat fats, but my proteins are very lean and then I get my fats from other areas.
Mhm.
Anything to add to that, Anne? I feel like I just rambled on, but it's just, again, small swaps can really go a long way.
Yeah, small swats. You were talking about fats, and I instantly thought, well, peanut butter is mine. That's the one that I get.
Yep. And but there's just a lot of misconception because again, the marketing game for everything is considered high protein these days. And it's either I can't hit my protein. What I see, the biggest, I guess, like spirals I see women in is like, I can't hit if I hit my protein, I blow up my calories, or consuming too much protein, my gut issues. I'm having massive, massive gut issues. And what I see happen is women go to not just like meat options, but they fall gimmick to the marketing ploys that are high protein. And so it's protein breasts. Oh my God, I can talk. Protein pastas, protein breads, protein wraps, protein pancakes. And those things serve a time and place. I will eat those things on occasion. And there's nothing wrong with those things. But if your day looks like two protein shakes, some protein pancakes, some protein pasta, and a bag of Quest chips to hit your protein goals, your digestion is going to hate you. No wonder you're bloated and you're miserable and you're gassy. And so you need to look at your protein options as well. And honestly, 80+% of your day should come from whole protein sources. So if it had a mom, if it had a dad, if it flew in the sky, it swam in the ocean, amazing protein source. Eggs, egg whites, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, amazing protein source. Edamame, tofu, hemp, seitan, amazing protein sources for vegans specifically, complete protein sources. So I think that's all I have to say there. I could ramble on for the rest of this podcast about protein. I really could. But yes, another one of those you really do need to hit your protein goals and you don't have to choke down bland chicken breast to do so.
Please don't. Please
Yeah.
don't.
Because that makes it miserable and then you're gagging it down and it's not fun and then it does feel daunting. So just experiment and allow yourself some time to rework and play around in MyFitnessPal. Find the protein sources that you really love and play around with amounts and pairing them with different foods to be able to find like your sweet spot and the foods that don't be prepared to eat the same things on repeat, you guys. That's the other thing I see. It's like I get bored. I don't want to eat the same thing. It's like prepare it differently then. Prepare it differently. It's just no different than your wardrobe. You have staple pieces in your wardrobe. You're going to have staple sources in your diet, staple protein sources, staple fat sources, staple carb sources, and then just mix and match and prepare them differently.
Absolutely. And there's
Yep.
so much on social media now with people that are posting high protein diet, high protein menu and recipes and a lot of things. Go there, go find your inspiration on social media, but don't get lost. Just find a couple.
Yep, for sure. All right, let's move on here because again, I'll monopolize this podcast with just protein. And maybe that should just be a podcast in of itself. If you guys find value to that, I'm happy to record a podcast just diving into that for you guys and just options and things that would make your life easier. All right, next question. I've been reading about hormone replacement therapy, but I'm scared. Some people say it's dangerous, some say it's life-changing. How do I know if I'm a good candidate?
Ooh. Go talk to a provider, but don't talk to any provider. Talk to someone that more likely functional medicine. They tend to really prefer optimization of hormone replacement. I had been on the fence too. I think there's a lot of misinformation and disinformation out there on social media about hormone replacement, really about anything. Let's be honest. You can find
Yeah.
controversy over egg whites, I'm sure, if we looked hard enough. But if you are not feeling good in your skin, if you don't feel like yourself, if you're tired all the time, you've got brain fog that won't quit, you want to take naps, you're falling asleep, near 3 o'clock in your afternoon, you're waking up at 3 a.m., everything seems kittywampus, and you're getting really fluffy. Hormone replacement is going to be a really great opportunity for you to dive in and at least get the energy that you need and the clarity in your head that you need, but go and have someone explain what the different hormone replacement options are and why there are some dangers with some and not the dangers with the other. And when you find someone that's very, very knowledgeable, they're going to explain. And that's one of the things that was explained to me on why they said I take bioidentical hormones and and I said, well, these are a lot more expensive than what my husband's paying for. How can I can't get what my husband's? Why is it more expensive for me than my husband? And they went on to kind of explain to me, well, this is where we get cancers from, and this is all the bad press for hormones are the synthetic hormones, and
Mhm.
they explained it much better than I could ever explain it. But in a gist, what happened was night and day difference for myself. And I know people that have gone on hormones that haven't liked the experience. I know that when I went to my PCP originally, they told me I could go on progesterone only birth control. And I said, no, birth control has never done me well. I have always turned semi-bipolar on birth control without a shadow of the doubt. And I wasn't going to be nasty to my family trying to get my life back. That it seemed like that was working in the wrong direction. But what I will say, and I say this as a healthcare provider myself, you are the expert of you. You may find someone extremely smart, very knowledgeable, but if it doesn't resonate for you, please, please, please keep searching. Keep searching until you find the person that it seems to really click, that it makes sense to you based upon the symptoms that you have. You are the only person who can do that. No one is going to be able to do that for you. There's a lot of really well-intentioned healthcare providers out there, myself included, and we're going to be looking at things through a very specific lens that may or may not be a helpful lens for you because you are the consumer. You get to choose. You have all the power to determine whether or not you want to settle for what they're telling you or if you want to keep looking. And if you don't like what you're being told, there are other providers out there that have different training and different methodologies that can get you to where you want to go.
Yep. I will say the Women's Health Initiative did us dirty, you guys, with a study years and years and years ago done in and around hormone replacement therapy. And these studies are still what a lot of providers, outdated studies, I should say, are still what a lot of providers are practicing and preaching by. And as Anne mentioned, there is a massive difference between bioidentical and synthetic hormones. All of these studies were done in synthetic hormones. Any sort of study that you read about or that you see that is out there is linked to a synthetic version. So, bioidentical is going to be the same molecular structure that your body already naturally produces. So, meaning it recognizes it as its own. Whereas synthetic is not. So these studies that they've done, specifically when we talk about estrogen, synthetic estrogen is horse urine. They derived this from a pregnant horse. So you're putting horse urine into your body, and then we wonder why we have the symptoms with that. And so when you look at the studies now that have been done, and I feel like, not feel like, I know for a fact, we're finally starting to put out the information, valid information out there when it comes to menopause and providers and boards. And we're starting to do more studies and really dive into how we can support women going through menopause. Just because there is, again, there's not a lot of information out there and there's not a lot of support. Is a night and day difference for a female going to her provider, walking in with brain fog, fatigue, overwhelm, anxiety, irritableness, low sex drive, gaining weight, than if a male were to go in to his primary care physician with the exact same symptoms. Those symptoms that or that I just rattled off, if a male goes in to his provider with those symptoms, that provider is writing a prescription for testosterone before he can even spit out what he's saying. Whereas a female goes in with these exact same symptoms and it's like, well, sounds like you might be slightly depressed. Have you thought about seeing a therapist? My love, there's no possible way. You're way too young. There's no possible way you're going through menopause, right? Yep. So,
That was
and
me.
that's exactly what's happening. And I want to talk about this, might even be a different podcast for a different day, but women fear menopause in of itself. But I feel like the real threat is honestly perimenopause, specifically because there's not a lot of information out there. There's not a lot of support. Women are going through this blind, not being prepared at all about what's to come for them. And then when they are trapped in this body and they're having these feelings and these emotions, there's nowhere to turn because the support is very, very, very minimal. And so I'm going to save that because that's a whole podcast for a different day because I have so much to say about this. But these studies particularly were done, like I was saying, in synthetic versions, where is the bioidentical, the pros dramatically outweigh the cons when it comes to bioidentical hormone replacement therapy and replacing these hormones. You guys, if you think about it, these hormones kept you vital and ticking for the first 30 plus years of your life. And as they start to decline, no wonder your body feels out of whack. No wonder you feel like a stranger. No wonder you have no idea what's going on. And so being able to educate yourself here is crucial to being able to advocate for yourself. And just taking the generic, like Anne said, it would be really unfortunate if she took her, and it, like she said, an amazing primary care physician. But if she took that advice for face value because that physician had a few letters in front of their name as to the end all be all, she'd still be suffering. And there are so many women who suffer for years and years and years and years because they take that as well. It just kind of is what it is at face value and then go directly, like Ann said, I understood that, or I knew for a fact synthetic birth control was not an option for me. But then they get on these, synthetic versions and they start gaining weight and the symptoms they're erratic and they're all over the place and they feel worse than they did before they started the synthetic versions. And so this is something where I just would continue to, I'm not a doctor. I'm not claiming to be a doctor. By no means am I telling you to listen to me over your primary care physician. But if something does not sit right with you and it doesn't feel good for you, and you know your body, as Anne said, even coming from, Anne is a doctor, right? She coming from that lens, you know your body better than anybody else. I would look for a second opinion. And this is exactly why we've added a hormone optimization team to our team, because it allows us to serve our clients at the highest capacity possible, working with providers who have the same belief system of treating off of symptoms, not off of labs, and providers who actually understand how to look at the whole picture and put a plan together for the whole picture instead of the very small piece that most PCPs and OBGYNs are looking at, just because it's outside of their scope. It's outside of their practice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Please don't give up on yourself. Seriously. And I have even seen people in the line of work that I do that go and find a different provider that really resonates for them and fits for them. And that is 100. We are all in the same stinking team. I am not offended by that. I am not surprised by that whatsoever. I am not going to be the best fit for every single person. I know some really good information that may get to you to where you want to go as a healthcare provider, but I may not have all of it for you, and that's okay because there's so many of us out there. And I really want to empower you saying this isn't a good fit to a healthcare provider, not because they're not bright or not well-meaning or anything. It's just like I want more than that. I don't like that answer. And I think that was something along the lines I said to my PCP, like that those are not options for me and I'm feeling really miserable. So I'm gonna see about other things. She's
Yep.
like, okay.
And be able to advocate for yourself and strong in your belief system of advocating for yourself, because
Absolutely.
we're just told to accept whatever crumbs get thrown our way and we just brush it underneath the rug as if, gaining 20 pounds overnight and feeling irritable and having no sex drive and no energy and feeling like a stranger in your own skin and depressed is normal. Nothing about that is normal, nor should you
No.
live the rest of your life feeling that way. So please, please, please advocate for yourself. All right, next question. And I have so much to say about this, Anne, but I'm excited to hear what you have to say. I used to have so much discipline in my 20s and 30s. Now I feel like I can't get myself to stick to anything, even though I want to. What has changed? So the desire's there, but I can't seem to commit to the follow through.
Well, if you're anything like the women that I see a ton of women who are burned out. Point blank, you did it all. You hustled in your 20s, you hustled in your 30s, you achieved what you needed to do. And matter of fact, this isn't just a woman thing. I say this with see this with men in middle age as well. We did all the things that we were told were going to make us feel successful, feel important, feel like we were good enough and worthy. And we did it. We accomplished those things. And now we're like, no, I'm here. Now what?
Mhm.
And why can't I suddenly do all those things? Well, because you already did it. You already hustled. You already got the degrees. You already got the job. You already got the spouse and had the kids in the house and the cars and the things. And we realized that hustling for all of those things didn't actually make us feel better as human beings. They were temporary fixes. But doing some of the hustle without the motivation behind it, without the self-care behind it, without the genuine self-care. I'm not talking about self-care that we check off like a checkbox, a to-do list. That's not self-care. That's just simply going through the motions. Genuine self-care, really loving ourselves, really feeling passionate about the work that we're doing and about how we're living our day and feeling proud as we end our day. That is the real MVP of mental health. And that is where we need to be. And like, I think one of the cool parts about middle age that really is underspoken. This is one of the reasons why there's a midlife crisis. We kind of do all those things that we thought was going to make us happy, and then we're suddenly like, that was it. I bought the ticket, went on the ride, and that was the ride. And sometimes it's because we didn't get to where we wanted to go, and we still want to get there. We realized that we didn't get to where we needed to go when it came to our appearance or how we're taking care of our bodies. But that midlife part, that crisis, is actually an opportunity for us. It's an opportunity for us to think differently, to do differently, to break out of all of the molds of hustling and doing to make everybody else around us happy or impressed or proud of us,
Mhm.
and start living a life that we are proud of, that we are impressed by, that we end our day going, damn, I did that. Like there are moments I go to the gym and I'm like, damn, I lifted that. Like that's I can't believe I did that. Or the funny story about learning push-ups. My coach tricked me into push-ups. I tore my rotator cuff and I dropped one day suddenly after I'd failed push-up for I don't know months, right? And I did 20 like it was nothing.
Mm.
And it wasn't because I had that as a goal. It wasn't a list to be checked off. It wasn't like I had a list of physical attributes and things that I wanted to do as a human being. It was just really cool realizing that my life didn't stop just because I'm now older. I'm now no longer in my prime. And I would invite you that as a woman, that if you're finding yourself in that spot, guess what? You get to break all those molds. You're not in your
Mhm.
20s anymore. Guys aren't looking at you all over the side. Like, we're not trying to get a person anymore. Like, we've done it. Maybe we've been divorced. We've kind of like been down that ride. You get to live life now on your terms. Nobody has to look at what you're doing, and you don't have to worry about upsetting the world. You get to try to make yourself proud of who you are and living a disciplined life. And that feels better than living for everybody else anyway.
Mm. So much power here, and you nailed so many things. And she's like, what changed? Well, girlfriend, life changed. You're no longer 20 or
Mhm.
30. You are a thriving boss babe. You probably have more accountability now than you did 10, 15 years ago. Priorities have shifted, right? Your attention goes to other places. You don't have the same, like, what used to matter so much 20 and 30. And, like Anne said, trying to attract the guy and the thing, those priorities are completely different. So if you try to mold yourself within the 20 or 30-year-old version of yourself and adapt those same mentalities, that's not fitting for the phase in the life that you're in now. Right. And that's the part that a lot of women lack and or that they struggle to see. And I always say it's typically what happens in your 20s and 30s. You put on a few pounds and you can just cut out a couple desserts and you starve yourself a little bit and you start fasting or you cut out carbs or whatever the case is. And those things worked in your 20s and 30s when you're probably more active. Your metabolism, right? You weren't losing muscle. Menopause hasn't hit. Your hormones haven't started to decline. And your body is just in a completely different phase now than it was in your 20s and 30s. And so the strategy has to shift. And you are still trying to use outdated strategies for the body that you have now, and you're
Yes.
still trying to prioritize the things like you're looking at yourself at 20 plus years ago and saying, well, here, this was so much easier for me. Yeah, with 10 less, sets of responsibilities for the day kind of thing. We work with women who are leading teams and CEOs and executives and, moms and wives and chauffeurs and all of these different titles and things that we have going on within life. So that change, life change, you change. That is what has changed. And your strategy needs to shift with that. And when menopause enters, you no longer get to starve yourself and eat like a bird. You no longer get to just try to catch up on sleep over the weekend. You no longer get to utilize these same tools and tactics that worked for you in your 20s and 30s. You have to be taking a functional approach, giving your body what it needs to thrive. So this isn't a lack of, and I see women all the time, they want to blame themselves and I'm just not disciplined enough, right? Like this isn't a lack of discipline. This isn't a lack of willpower. You and I both know that you have plenty of that. This is a lack of strategy. This is your entire strategy is working against your hormones, metabolism, and mental sanity issue. That's what this is. It has nothing. This isn't a you thing. Well, it is, right? Because ultimately you have the choice, but this isn't I don't have the desire or the willpower or the quote unquote discipline to do it. It's just, I need an approach now that works for me now, not 20 years ago.
Mm. Yeah, I love the fact that you said that. As you were talking, I was thinking of now my youngest daughter is 18, and her mornings sometimes consist of a Red Bull and a bag of chips or French fries at like 5 hours later, and then she'll eat like McDonald's or something. Not, I don't have anything against McDonald's, but that is and she's like this big. She's like tiny. And that's how she lives. And I thought, as you were talking, of like, yeah, that kind of sounds like 20. Like I used to be able to eat all the movie theater candy and popcorn and all the stuff, and then it's like, oh, you gain a couple pounds. Well, I'll skip breakfast and I'll like go to the gym and work out and cardio a little bit more, and I'll be gone, and I'll probably lose 5 pounds
Yep.
in 24 hours. Um, and I love the fact that you said that, because one of the coolest parts about being in a place where we no longer get to do that. We don't unless there's something very interesting about you. And we can talk. If you are that person, please comment. But the really cool part about that is that we get to be those women that are disciplined, get into really good routines, that we wind up, instead of jumping from thing to thing, kind of like my daughter does, right? She can wake up, she can roll out of bed and hit the ground running within like 10 minutes. I don't know how she does it. But we get much more regulated and we get much more calm and confident when we're living every single day mindfully with great intention and with great routines and practices. And when we do that, people feel that strength. It's
Mm-hmm.
like it's like this internal aura that we kind of give off around us. They feel that strength just being in your presence, because you're living a life that's very intentional and very mindful.
Yep. 100%, 100%. You're trying to use an outdated playbook. That's all that this is. And when you have
Mhm.
the right strategy and you start taking the right approach, everything shifts. And it is a different approach. There's just no question about it. What used to work in your 20s and 30s is no longer going to cut it. So we just have to look at the strategy and what you're choosing, the methods and methodologies that you're choosing to utilize when it comes to weight loss. All right, last question. What's the real deal with fat loss and alcohol when it comes to menopause? Is it impossible to be able to basically, I'm summing up this question without looking at my screen reading word for word, but is it impossible to lose weight in menopause still enjoying a cocktail?
Oh, wow. Okay. That is a fun question, and I enjoy cocktails. So, we'll go on that one. It is not impossible to lose weight while drinking. However, when you drink, the day that you drink, you do lose some of the fat burning principle, because your body's taking care of poison. Alcohol is a poison,
Yeah.
right? And so if we're spending our day being really mindful about what we're consuming and we want to end the day, and I see sometimes women who want to end every day or every other day with one glass or two of wine. And while that's not a ton of wine, the problem is that what research shows is that only 4 drinks a week increases your cortisol uh, the following week. So our bodies are in stress, they're in inflammation from the poison that we consumed the week prior. So if we're living our entire week being really mindful about things that we're putting in our body, about how much protein we're taking in, we're being really mindful about showing up at the gym, we're working against ourselves when we drink. And while I do still, a matter of fact, just last night I went out with my husband and had a glass of wine. I had one single glass. It was lovely. But if I'm going to spend a grand majority of my week drinking alcohol, it's like shooting myself in the foot if I'm trying to be really mindful about what I'm consuming, because it's still something that you're consuming and it is a poison. So all of your body's energy has to drive towards taking care of that poison until it is filtered out of your bloodstream. And that's going to take hours to do, not just a few minutes. So we need to be really mindful. And if I'm to pick and choose between, I don't know, something like chocolate and alcohol, I'm going to pick the chocolate because it's going to be out of my bloodstream a lot faster and I can eat a smaller amount and really enjoy it. Um, and so we've got to pick and choose. We have to be much more thoughtful about what we're exposing ourselves to. It's not that we can't, but I see a lot of women, especially in middle age, and a lot of men will do this too, where their evenings are now they're looking at 1 or 2 glasses of wine in the evening. And if that's what you're wanting to live, that's how you're wanting to live, then it will be really hard for you to get the physique that you want because your body is working overtime to manage poison. And there is no nice way of us talking about that. Can you still have alcohol? You bet you can. But we need to be really, really practiced and really intentional about when.
You just nailed it. And I feel like there's so much context missing here too. It's can you still drink and lose body fat? Like Anne said, yes, I enjoy a cocktail. She's, down X amount of percent in body fat. She's girlfriend's ripped. She's like, she looks phenomenal. So yes, it is possible. But Anne also has the 90+% mastered behind the scenes. She's consuming enough protein. She's strength training. She understands calories in versus out. And that part of it is being managed. So at the end of the day, like Anne says, when you drink alcohol, because you hear all the time it stops fat burning, it does for a period of time as it's trying to metabolize and push it out, as Anne said, out of your system. But when we compare apples to apples, if you are in a calorie deficit, you're consuming enough protein, and you drink alcohol and you still are within that calorie deficit, eating enough protein, you will lose weight. You will
Mhm.
absolutely lose weight when apples to apples are compared. But you are living in the land of Delulu if you think that you're going to be able to macrofy your way into drinking a bottle of wine every single night or trying to implement every single day getting away with consuming multiple glasses of an alcoholic beverage. And obviously there's different, lower calorie options versus higher calorie options, whatever it is that you're drinking, but that is just pushing real food off your plate. Calories still matter. And alcohol, a lot of people don't know this, is the fourth macronutrient. There's 7 calories per gram when it comes to alcohol. So if you understand how to track alcohol correctly and you're accounting for it correctly and you're still in that calorie deficit, you're still consuming enough protein, you're going to lose body fat. What does alcohol do for us though when we consume alcohol? Like Anne said, I had a glass and she's able to have a glass and she enjoyed the glass of wine. Typically what I see happen is a lot of times when people ask me this, it's not I'm having a glass on occasion. I go out to dinner with my spouse and I enjoy it. It's I'm trying to fit this into my routine religiously. And what happens is a couple glasses of wine turn into the bottle, and then you're out to dinner, and all of a sudden the fried appetizers look really freaking good, and you're gonna have a steak and baked potato, and it's like, oh well, I'm feeling a little tipsy. That fettuccine Alfredo actually sounds much more appealing. And then you eat that, and you polish off the dessert, and you get home, and you're still feeling slightly tipsy, so you raid the pantry, you get to bed, you're not sleeping as good, you wake up, you're still slightly hungover, you miss your gym session the next day because you slept in and you just feel like dog doo doo. And it takes you 3 days to recover because it takes us longer as hormones start to decline, you guys, in menopause to recover from the amount of alcohol you're trying, like if you're consuming excess, I say excessive, but when you're consuming multiple glasses of wine, our body just menopauses. It's hormone deficiency. It's a massive stressor on the body. It takes our bodies longer to recover. And so again, you missed the 2, 3 days after you went out and had your, bottle of wine that you consumed with your girlfriends. And I'm not saying that that is bad. So please, I enjoy wine. I like wine. I'm a wino. I enjoy it. So I'm not discounting it as bad, but I'm trying to paint the picture because I know that this is where a lot of you fall. And so it's the repercussions from the alcohol when your decisions get a bit more loose because you're feeling good. And all of a sudden now it's like, I'm mindful of my protein intake. I'm mindful of my calories. That all goes out the window with the Betos runs at 2 a.m. Been there, done that multiple times. And so it's not the alcohol per se itself, it's the repercussions from the alcohol and the shitty decisions that are typically made with consuming more alcohol. So I'm just going to ask you to be mindful of that. So it's not that you can't, but is it the most optimal approach? No, absolutely not. Would fat loss be easier if you cut it out? Mm-hmm. It absolutely would. But that doesn't mean that you need to. It doesn't have to be to the extreme. I'm not telling you that you have to go sober. I love the example that Anne said. I went out last night and I had a glass of wine with my husband. Cool, amazing. She understands how to account for that. She fits it in within her day. She still sees amazing results, but it's going to be really, really hard to consume multiple alcoholic beverages throughout your day and stay within your calorie deficit and consume enough protein and do the things that you need to do that lead to fat loss. If you are trying to consume uh, more alcohol, that is, then I guess nothing about alcohol is optimal, but with a lot of women we work with, it is their coping mechanism, right? Life is stressful. A couple glasses of wine at night is the only way that they really know how to unwind and relax. And it is used, and I'm not saying they're alcoholics. That's not what I'm saying, but it is a coping mechanism for sure, because it is how
Yep.
they unwind, it's how they relax, and it's all that they know. And so trying to continue and keep those habits that you have now that aren't serving your goals is going to be really challenging when it comes to calories in, calories out, and what needs to happen and what actually drives fat loss.
Yeah, and there are so many, and if you're in that category and you really are struggling with this, or let's say you're drinking every night or every other night, you're having a glass or two, and it's not to a place that it's problematic. One of the very first recommendations I give people just to work on this a little bit is to swap it out with a drink that you have reserved specifically for evening. And this could be like one of those drinks with ashwagandha or L-theanine, and
Mhm.
like something like one of those moment drinks or something that just is specifically for nighttime for you, so that you feel that you're still getting that taste of something in the evening that's exclusive to the evening time without the added calories and the effect of the alcohol itself. And
Put it
you
in a
may
fancy
find it,
glass. Make it
yeah,
seem,
yeah.
yeah, put it in the glass, do the thing, like make a whole ritual out of it.
Yes, that is exactly what I do. I have wine glasses my daughter bought, and I thought I don't want to like this. These are so nice, and that's why I have a kombucha that I drink every
Hmm.
evening. It's a nitro kombucha, and it fills up that wine glass all the way to the top, and I enjoy it in the evening. So you can still be fancy, and you don't have to drink a lot, but just that's a really easy, quick trick.
For sure. And I think this goes to the what has changed, you have changed, and your body just does not respond to the alcohol. Not that ever responded well in your 20s and 30s, but you could get away with it more. Like thing when your hormones start to shift, you don't recover as well. It hits you harder, and it's the reality of what it is. And so I can't even remember I think the last time I drank was I had one cocktail on our honeymoon. I had a couple cocktails the night of our wedding, but I honestly, you guys, for me, it's a calories. I would much rather eat a cookie. I'm like you, Ann. If we're talking calorie for calorie, I enjoy the cookie more than I would enjoy the glass of booze. And I'm just such a lightweight that it just takes me forever to recover from. I just feel like dog doo doo for the rest of my
Yes.
days. So I have opted out, and I don't say I've gone sober. It's not like I'm like, oh, I don't drink, but it's a swap that I've made. And it's like if I'm going to go out and I want to enjoy and I want to like have the things, then I'll get my diet, whatever, and I'll enjoy that in a glass. And then I have my dessert. And that's really it. But it is a choice though. It's a this or that. It starts to like you have to start to prioritize certain things because if you're trying to fit in the fried food and the appetizer and the booze and the dessert, that's going to add up and it's going to add up quickly. It's going to be really, really challenging.
Mhm.
Yep. Anything else to add?
No, this has been so much fun.
I know. I
I
love
love
the
the
Q&A.
questions.
So we're gonna have to do more of these. I'll run more stories for you guys to be able to pop in. The last one I did was an anonymous one, which I think for a lot of women just feels a little bit. I know it can feel slightly vulnerable, but if you guys found value to this and you're like, okay, Nicole, the next time you run a Q&A, would you answer this for me? Please just shoot me a DM. My DMs are always open. And then if you guys again find value and you're not liking and sharing and saving to your social media and tagging us, what are you doing? So please, 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 the more that you can spread the good gospel, spread the word, we would appreciate it. But your guys's just reviews and insight mean everything to us. So again, thank you so much for that. But if you don't have anything else to add in, I think we're going to see you guys in the next episode. Ciao.